The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned into the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Rob Waltko and Joe Youngblood. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome back to another week in the open room with Rob and Joe. Rob, a lot of stuff to cover this week. A lot of information. We're going to go over the week that was in college wrestling. And, it's December and upsets galore. Tons of great wrestling. Rob, I don't know about you. I've been on wrestling overload in the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have, but definitely a lot to process as well. So, jumping in, first thing we're going to talk about.
Penn State. Yeah, I don't know what you can say about them. I don't know if there's enough adjectives to describe this team. What they did this weekend. Now, they did wrestle Bucknell, sorry, Rob, and Lehigh, a depleted Lehigh team. And I have a lot of people that I know, acquaintances, and that are casual wrestling fans. They're Penn State fans, and because of the success of the wrestling team, they start to watch it. And I had a friend post on Facebook about, he posted, wow, he's like, I don't know anything about, literally the post said, I don't know anything about wrestling. Not giving up a takedown the entire match seems to me to be pretty good. And so him and I got talking via Facebook about it, and he didn't know that wrestling only has 9.9 scholarships. He didn't know a lot of things. So then he asked me a question, is it comparable to Alabama football, what they're doing? And I said, maybe this opinion will come off bias, and Rob, maybe you might have the same opinion. But there's little room for error to miss on a recruit in wrestling like there is in football. You can miss on 4 or 5 guys a year and still be a national champion football team. You miss on 4 or 5 guys in 1 year on a recruiting class on a wrestling team, and that's the difference between being having a winning team record and being under 500 and maybe not even win a dual meet. So I don't know, Rob. And maybe that's just an obvious statement on my part. But that's something like a lot of the casual fans may necessarily understand, just how special this team is.
Yeah, everyone they get in just turns to gold. They have the magic eye. They know what recruits work out. Like Nick Lee, he's on fire. He wasn't the number 1 overall recruit. Sure, he was a really good recruit, and they got him early, but he's just competing at such a high level right away. For them, if you're not rated All-American as a freshman, they're probably looking to recruit someone that can. So you better be ready to go. But yeah, on to that point, they're unbelievable. I don't think there's going to be anyone that competes with them even close this year. And yeah, Lehigh was banged up. Bucknell, isn't a top 10 team, but they embarrassed both teams. They were just way superior at pretty much every weight class, and they're a lot of fun to watch. I'll tell you this, though. You look at 157 for Bucknell. Hartman, he got pinned by Nolf, but he showed that he can compete with him to a degree. So I think that's definitely something to look forward to for the Bison fans.
Yeah, so speaking of the Bucknell match, it was a 42-3 drubbing by the Nittany Lions. It was just a nonstop barrage of points right from the start. Points, bonus point victories. I will say this about Hartman. You did bring up a good point. He went out and battled. Like, he was in some deep leg attacks, got a takedown on Nolf. Like, reality did set in eventually, but for me, Hartman went out and just didn't care who he was wrestling and was just going out and doing his thing, and he looked good doing it. Vincenzo Joseph did not wrestle in that match, and that was the lone loss for the Lions. Bo Pfeiffer lost to DJ Hollingshead 10-5. It was one of those things I was watching that, and I went to put my kids to bed, and Mark Hall was in control of his match, and I was like, okay, well, get back down in time to see part of Rashid's match. And I came down, and it was already like the second period of the nickel match, and I had to go back and rewatch what happened, and Rashid goes out and gets a 30-second pin. Kassar, same thing. Kassar was just almost criminal what he did against Bucknell, hitting that high double and packing him up in about 32 seconds. It wasn't pretty if were a Bison fan. But the one thing I will say, Bucknell, we talked with Coach LaValle, bringing them on campus, getting Penn State in there, and it's good for recruiting. It's shown their recruits that they're going to go out and they're going to wrestle the best competition, and it was just good to fill the gym. And from that aspect, it was nice to see. It's always great to see an arena filled watching a wrestling dual meet.
Couldn't agree more. That's what you need. You need butts in the seats, and Bucknell certainly accomplished that. Between the two Penn State matches, I mean, Kassar beating the heck out of Wood, that had to be the highlight. Would you agree, Joe? I was a little bit surprised by that, to be honest.
When you look at the matchups, I guess that one or the Cutler Hall match would be somewhat of a big match. That Hall was workmanlike in winning, but the Kassar match and Wood was it was definitely a match that was for jockeying for rankings. And again, rankings, we know they don't mean a whole lot, but in that regard, that's a huge win in December for Kassar. He's already brimming with confidence as to what he's done to this point, and that was just another feather in his cap. And again, the fashion in which he did it, he really put it on Jordan Wood, and I don't know how many people outside that Penn State wrestling room really saw that coming. I felt Kassar could win. I felt it was a toss-up match. I didn't see a 12-3 major decision.
No, especially at heavyweight, like a 5-3 match where Wood doesn't touch his legs. It's kind of what I expected, but Kassar looks really good. You look at the landscape of heavyweight, I think him, Gable Stevenson, Stoll, and Desi are the big four. A lot of people are saying Kassar looks like a finalist already. He certainly could, but Desi and Stoll, they're not chopped liver either.
No, but I will say, I think Kassar, his athleticism is really gonna give Stoll and Desi, those bigger heavyweights, problems. And I can't wait to see Kassar and Stevenson go at it. I hope it happens sooner rather than later. I had a discussion with my uncle, who's he's a casual wrestling fan, and we go back and forth. And he said he drinks the Penn State Kool-Aid pretty regularly, and he was like, Kassar's gonna win it all. And I was like, there's this guy you might want to look up. His name's Gable Stevenson. Maybe Google him and read a little bit, watch some of his matches where you can, and don't be rushed to judgment on Kassar just yet. Finalist, I definitely can see it. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but I definitely can see a finalist because I think he gives those bigger heavyweights that aren't as mobile as him fits. Not the same breath, like those bigger heavyweights are significantly larger and have more weight advantage, but Kassar's just it's like cut from stone. And quoting you, he's tough as a $2 steak. The other thing in that Penn State match against Lehigh, I want to outline. I thought it was pretty neat. Devin Schnupp gets a lot of flack for being like the hole in that lineup, and basically he wins a match. He beat Luke Resnick, O&J guy, mind you, 6-1, and Rec Hall based the game in standing ovation. Like, they appreciate the fact that he still goes out there and battles. And that's all you can ask for out of him. Will he be the starter by the season's end? Rob, your thoughts on that?
I think he will be. I don't think they need to pull Teskey out of red shirt. And I don't know if Teskey's ready to compete for a title or high All-American status. So I think whether or not they pull Teskey out, they run away with the title. So I think that Schnupp probably competes in the Big Tens for them.
So while we're talking about Penn State, one more thing. Could Vincenzo Joseph win the Hodge?
I saw that on Flo's front page. I didn't watch or look at it yet, but I don't think so. I think it's null for Nichols to lose.
Yeah, I think so too. But Vincenzo Joseph could he have more competition than 65 if he runs the table? Who knows? And here's the other thing, like with the voters, like you got three guys in the same team vying for it, they're going to split votes.
Who else would be I don't know. You got Lee, Miles Martin. I mean, there's other guys that could win, so it'll be interesting, but get through the year, see who's on top then.
Fair, just throw it out there now while it's early and it's December and see what happens with that. But this Penn State team, barring injuries, I don't know that anyone can touch them. in a dual meet or a tournament. They just can put up so many points, and they do it so quick, and in both matches and from the team aspect. So it's just, unbelievably fun to watch. But we've talked about it. At times it's unfair. It's like you compare it to Alabama football. At times it's not that fun to watch because it's so not competitive. Moving on, talking about some other PA guys that we're checking with the Arizona State, see how they're doing. A little PA West, further west than Iowa. This past weekend, Arizona State, they won the Cougar Clash, and they did that on the back of a couple first place finishes. But Josh Maruka and Josh Shields, PA guys, Franklin Regional guys, both finished second, with Maruka taking a loss to Cole Martin from Wisconsin by decision 1-0 in the final, and Shields losing to Evan Wick 5-4 in the finals. Number 2 ranked Evan Wick. Neither loss is a bad loss. And Rob, you and I talked off camera a little bit about Wisconsin and what Bono and company are doing there, and Wisconsin's definitely trending upward, and they're only going to get better. They're pretty good, and they're in that rugged Big Ten, but they're only going to get better, and they're already seeing the dividends of that hire, I believe.
I agree. He, much like Dresser, right away he's going to get guys in shape and competing really hard. He's a heck of a coach, and he's a guy I think Wisconsin's going to be a force to reckon with for the near future. Other PA guys, notable results. Hayden Hidley took a loss Friday night to Larry Early, 4-2. It's Hidley. It's only his second loss, so kind of a big deal, but not really. He's wrestled in some close matches. I expect he'll bounce back no problem, and be a guy that's competing to get in the finals next year. Big win for Colby Ho, Du Bois native, wrestling at George Mason. Our friends in the greater Washington, D.C. area. He beat Alex Clucker. Clucker, of course, was nationally ranked for Lock Haven, was ranked, and a former national qualifier. So that's a really big win for Colby, who's in his true freshman year and has I think his record right now is 8-3. Couple losses, one to Larry Early. Early's kind of the Pennsylvania assassin, but Hull's a guy that's looking to compete in Pittsburgh in March. And then last but not least, Penn wrestled this weekend. They lost to Ryder, but they thumped Maryland. And the match of the day there was Artelona, true freshman from Florida, wrestling for Penn, went out and beat Baby J Bannister, who's a national qualifier. So that's a good win. Artelona climbs into the national rankings via Flow at number 19. So certainly he's looking like a nice pickup for them and a guy that they're excited to have in the lineup. So let's go to our Vegas recap, Joe. You start with the lightweights. What do you got for us at 25, 33, 41, 49, 57? Well,
before I get into that, Rob, I think we need to visit our picks. And for those that are following along on Twitter, Rob and I went back and forth between Thursday and Friday, giving our top 4, what we believed. And, man, I could not have been more wrong than I was. I guess I could have. Rob thumped me pretty good, despite the trash I talked. And so basically how we broke it down, we gave our top 4, and you only scored points for if you were correct in their actual place. You got 4 for first place, you got 3 for second if you picked it correctly at each weight class, and 2 for third, and 1 for fourth place. And when the dust settled, Rob beat me 42-29. He picked 7 champs correctly. I picked 6, but Rob just murdered me in those consolation picks. I took a goose egg at 3 weight classes at 41, 65, and 74, and those were some weight classes that had some serious just upsets and great matches. And I went against my gut at 41, but partially because Rob picked before me, so I kind of went against him as well. I figured you have to be bold. See what I did there, Rob? Be bold in order to win, and so there's that. So in our first competition of the year, you have one, but we do have Midland, Scuffle, and ultimately NCAAs that we can compete on next. So you own a 1-0 record. Congrats, Rob.
Yeah, I think I actually had 9 champs. Besides Mesa, I nailed every one. But yeah, the picks I'm proud of. Like I said last week, Ryan Deacon was going to win, and I put Mekhi Lewis in the finals. Admittedly, I thought Lewis would lose to Massa, but heck of a tournament for him.
We won't dwell on that. Anyway, so we'll go to Vegas. First 5 weight classes, and we're going to talk just primarily about the PA guys and how they did. 125 pounds. Only medalist out of Pennsylvania was Moisey from Nebraska. He was the 5 seed. He did finish 7th. Rob, I'll get your 2 cents in a second. I don't know. Like, again, he didn't look on top of his game. And again, it's early. It was November, the end last weekend, November, first weekend, December time. I mean, he's got a lot of time to get where he needs to be. He didn't look himself. He in the matches that he lost, and he came in and won his last one and finished 7th. Escaped healthy, so that's probably the most important thing. Everything else said he can still work on it. Your thoughts on Moisey?
Yeah, he didn't look great. Took a loss to Drew Matton, who's tough, but not an All-American. And then on the winner's side, he got beat up pretty bad by Fleetwood. So I don't think Moisey's 100% healthy, but he's certainly a dangerous draw come March.
And he's proven that in the past. 33 was real exciting for PA. First I'll talk about the Luke Pletcher. He was a 3 seed. He did finish 3rd. He lost in the semis to Micky Phillippi, who was a 7 seed. And Mickey, coming off a great performance, finished 2nd at Vegas. He didn't have what it took to run with Siriano in the finals, but there's not a whole lot of people that do. But in his match against Pletcher in the semis, it was basically a matchup of 2 guys who don't shoot, and a very defensive match, 2-1 grinder, won by Phillippi. And I don't know, Rob, does this put him in the discussion to be in that? I mean, he's ranked 5th now according to new rankings. Is he the 5th best guy in the country at 133 pounds in your opinion?
It's hard to say because that weight is so deep. I think he certainly could finish 5th. I also wouldn't be surprised if they wrestled the national tournament. He went 2-2, and that could be said about a lot of guys in that weight. So awesome job by him. He looked really good versus Lezak. I think that's a tough matchup for Lezak. And then Phillippi and Pletcher, they've worked out together their whole lives. They've wrestled 1,000 times. I knew that was going to be nip and tuck, but he ended up coming out on top, which Pletcher in the past has got the better of him. I think Mickey might have beaten him once, but super happy for him, and glad to see Pitt have some success.
Yeah, we talked with Coach Gavin earlier in the fall in the preseason, and he's not surprised by this. These are things that they've been training for and working towards, and so I'm sure it's not really a surprise for them, and probably not a surprise for Phillippi either. I'm sure those are things that he envisioned doing going out there. Moving on to 141, Mikey Carr from Illinois. He was a 3 seed. He finished 6th. He made the semis, lost to Jaden Ironman from Missouri, and then he injury defaulted out. I have not heard if he is indeed injured, if there was something maybe a little nicked up and decided to not push it. So he ended up taking 6th place, like I said. Unseeded Sam Krivas from UVA finished 7th. He lost in the first round and then won 5 straight after that. Just had a great tournament. Caught fire there for a little bit, and then ends up medaling out there in Vegas, and you can't ask for much more coming from being unseeded and guy that we kind of glanced over in our preview. I think we might have mentioned him briefly, if at all, I think you might have mentioned him as a potential dark horse in your preview at 41, Rob.
Yeah, I did. He looked great. He lost both his matches to the same guy, Dom Demas from Oklahoma, but I think 141 is the optimal weight for him. At 49 last year, I didn't think he looked great. And I watch him. He's a kid that's local to where I'm from, so certainly think he's a guy that's trending in the right direction. And he had a heck of a tournament.
Then we go to 149. PA result. Brock Zackrell was a 6 seed. He finished 4th. And was having a great tournament. Made the semis. Had a big win over Grant Leith from Missouri, the 3 seed. he got to the semis, wrestled Micah Jordan, ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw with him. Jordan just had too much smoke for him. Beat him 19-6, beat him up pretty good. And again, it's a good measuring stick. We talk about the time of the season. He sees where he is and sees where Jordan is, and now he knows the work he needs to put in to get there. Fortunately, in that third, fourth place match, Gonzalez and O'Connor, he had to injury default. It was right to be in the second period. He chose down in a 0-0 match. He comes up and on the mat return by O'Connor, he kind of like posts out and he was extended a little bit. I don't know if he hyperextended the elbow, but he looked to be holding it and be in some pain. Rob, your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on how he wrestled in the tournament and the injury as well?
He wrestled well. Jordan's a tough matchup for him. I think Jordan's a tough matchup for anyone that isn't really good on top. And if you're good on top, you can give Mike a lot of problems. But yeah, Zackrell, I thought he wrestled really well all weekend. From what I hear, the injury isn't severe. I don't think he'll wrestle this weekend, but it's nothing that's going to restrict him for the rest of the year. So, good start to the season for him. I think he went out there, beating a guy like Leith, who doesn't lose a whole lot, is a huge win. Just another All-American that he's beaten. Hope he's back on the mat here sooner than later.
And looking at 57, Pennsylvania had no medalists out in Vegas at 57. Pitt had a medalist. At 157, Talib Rahmani finished fifth for the Panthers, but PA had no one that got on the podium, despite their best efforts. So there's my take on those first 5 weight classes, Rob. Let's jump in your half on F165 moving forward.
Yeah, so much like 57, no place winners at 165. A guy who did the best is Jake Wenzel from Pitt. He went 3-2. He lost 2 close ones. He lost 8-5 to Flynn from Missouri. I think it was 6-5 late. He lost to Gunther 3-2, and those guys were 7th and 8th. So he certainly showed that he's right there. He moved up in the rankings to 17, so he's ready to compete, and he's knocking on the door. He just has to get that marquee win. Jumping ahead to 74, Labriola ended up 4th place for Nebraska by way of Bethlehem Catholic. He looked like he got hurt, though, in the semifinals versus Amin. He held him off in the first period, almost got a takedown. Amin ended up getting to the legs the third time in the second period and finished. It forced Labriola to take injury time, and Labriola ended up getting ridden the whole third. And then his Conti semi match, he actually won by default over Dylan Leidy from Purdue, and then Labriola defaulted for third. So I don't know the severity of the injury. Have you heard anything, Joe, or did you get a chance to see that? It didn't look great. He finished the match, but he was in a lot of pain.
I did not hear anything about the severity of the injury, and like I said, he was hindered by whatever it is that's bothering him, and we'll monitor it moving forward, see if he misses time if at all from the Nebraska lineup. Yeah,
so another guy from Pennsylvania we hope is not seriously injured and hope he's back out there soon. 184 ended up with 2 Pennsylvania place winners here. Past guest Zach Savatsky ended up 4th. He lost twice to Drew Foster. Both were close. They were tough matches. Foster looked awesome. He looks like the Foster from 2 years ago, not last year. So Zavatsky moves into 5th in the flow rankings. Foster moves up to 4th. One thing with with Zavatsky, is he did beat Nino Bonacorsi. We'll talk about him in a minute. But he beat up Max Dean 13-6. And Dean's a guy that almost beat him here last year. So that's a good win. He's wrestling well. Just Foster had his number this weekend. Bonacorsi, he ended up 7th. Man, his quarterfinal, he was blowing the doors off of third-ranked Taylor Venz. He had 4 takedowns, goes neutral in the third, takes a low shot. Venz chest wraps him, puts him on his back, and pins him. And similar to when they wrestled at the U23s, Nino had a big win, got thrown late. He just can't close this guy out. Did you watch that match? I was pretty bummed out for him there.
That was one I missed. I saw Zavatsky wrestle in this bracket, and that match you talked about with Dean, where he kind of put it on Dean. So I didn't see that one, but I now you say I'm gonna go back and rewatch it. Venz, I don't know, I say a lot, and maybe I'm a broken record. I say this to you, Rob, a lot. Like the eye test, Venz doesn't pass the eye test, but dude gets on the mat and he just does work. And Foster was wrestling well, and he put it to Foster a little bit to get to the final, and then Venz was handled by Martin, but Venz, like, he just he looks very happy-go-lucky a lot, and he looks extremely young in the face, but man, like I said, he just does work when he's on the mat. He's a switch flips, and he's a different person. So, but I was definitely impressed with that match where Zavatsky put it on Dean. I think it was 6-6 going into the third. We talked about this, or it was 8-6 maybe, that Zavatsky was winning, and he turned Dean twice in the third period. And I was saying just how hard he rode him and just imposed his will from top in that third period.
Yeah, it was a great match for Zavatsky. And yeah, Venz, if you remember Dustin Kilgore from Kent State, he reminds me of him in the face. Kind of like Kilgore had this like babyish face a little bit, but he was built more like a Mack truck than Venz is. Moving ahead, 197. Big surprise for the Clarion Eagles, Golden Eagles. Greg Bolsack ends up in the semifinals. He beat Tom Slay in the quarterfinals pretty handily. Goes out, loses a shootout 8-6 to Schultz from Nebraska. Gave up points at the end of the first and second period. It really hurt him. He was in the match, just those late takedowns. From there, he lost to Traxler. Then he defaulted to sixth, but he got himself in the national rankings as well. Great weekend for him. Slay ended up placing as well, but Bolsack was certainly the story. He looked like a beast. Did you get to watch him much, Joe?
I did. I caught the Traxler match, and again, I think Traxler losing as early as he did. He was kind of on a mission as he came through consolations. And he just, he had too much for Bolsack at that point to compete. And, like Traxler, I think, had visions of probably being that final against Colin Moore. And the fact he didn't, he went on that run in winning 4 or 5 straight in the consolations. Him and Loizu both getting upset and having to wrestle in that consolation round 1. And, there's 2 guys, the top 2 and the 4 seed wrestling all the way back there, and a 15-11 shootout won by Traxler. And then, from then on out, he just rolled moving into that third place match.
Yeah, he looked really good, Traxler, that is, and certainly got his money's worth in the consies. Speaking of guys that lose early and make runs back, Demetrius Thomas. We're going to talk to Kerry Regner a little bit later, but Demetrius Thomas actually wrestled at Williams Baptist for Kerry. Kerry recruited him there. Kerry left. Thomas wins an NAIA national title and then moves on to Pitt. He loses his first match in a pigtail to a Division II guy. And I'm thinking, man, this guy just doesn't have it. And then he rips off 7 straight wins, 6 of them by bonus points. He ended up losing to Elam for third from Missouri, who's the junior world bronze or silver medalist. But he's looking like a guy that could place this year. He's ranked 12th right now. He knocked off a ton of ranked guys this weekend and looked awesome. Joe, did that surprise you at all? I knew he was good. That first loss kind of made me roll my eyes, but he showed up in the consies. Yeah, geez.
We talked about Krivas earlier, losing early and catching fire. But Thomas's run is way more impressive. And again, especially in a Conti semi match, beating Daniel from North Carolina. He had it. He had it on that second day and he just cruised. Elam. I didn't catch the match with Elam, but overall, very impressive run for Demetrius. I didn't put it when I read his bio. I didn't put it together that was Coach Regner's guy that wrestled for him down at Baptist.
Yeah, he's a beast, man. And Pitt overall wrestled great. They were, I think, 6th. They had 4 place winners, and then Wenzel and Bentley at 65 and 41 were round to 12. Pitt, they look great. Hats off to Coach Gavin and company. Great tournament by them. And what's crazy is they're really young. Everyone on this roster that did damage is back next year, at least for one more year. So heck of a tournament for them. Cool. So what do we got next? We got the interview coming up, right?
Yeah, we're going to have on Micky Phillippi. We're going to wrap with him a little bit about his season up to this point, coming off, big weekend out in Vegas. He won big and not in the casinos. He won big there and, finishing second coming out as a 7th seed and really boosting his ranking and, again, putting everyone on notice that, he's the wrestler that everyone thought he was going to be. And, we're looking forward to getting him on and, talking with him a little bit about that. Micky, thanks for joining the open room with Rob and I. Looking forward to chatting a little bit with you about how the season's going so far and what it has in store for you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks for having me.
So, Micky, first question we want to get out there. What went into transferring here to Pitt? Obviously, you're a pretty big recruit coming out of high school. Ended up at ACC rival Virginia for a year, then came back home. What prompted that?
Yeah, in the recruiting process, I was pretty indecisive. I kept my options open for a long time, and I was between a lot of schools. And then I really liked Virginia, and I liked the family atmosphere there. And then whenever I got there, I wasn't feeling at home as I thought I would. So, the homesickness, that was one thing. And, being closer to home for me was obviously a huge factor. Cause I just want to be physically, mentally, all together when it comes to my wrestling. So, and I tried to get past it, but it just, it didn't feel the same. And, I wanted to put myself in the best position to accomplish my goals. So I made the move and, the coaches here are amazing. So I got lucky with the coaching staff that we ended up with. But I was looking to get closer to home no matter what. So that wasn't the reason. It wasn't the coaches weren't the reason that I made the move. It was just it was a plus on top of everything.
Yeah, I noticed after your first dual meet, Coach Waller tweeted a picture of probably 15 people from All-American and you say like a family. How good does that feel to have your club coach and kids from your hometown being able to come out to watch you live?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a huge part of it. Being here at a home match, it's really like a home match. It's not in Virginia, I'd go even just to watch, and it's I didn't really know anyone, and it's nice to see familiar faces and have people like Coach Waller come who has coached me basically my whole life. And then have like you said, people from my hometown. We had a youth clinic before the match. So there was a ton of kids from Derry youth program there. So that was really cool. And it's just nice. It's really nice to have my whole family is able to come and watch too, it's really cool. Like I said, it's really a home match now. So.
Had you looked at any other schools, or was Pitt a pretty easy decision? Like you said, close to home, you're pretty familiar with some of the coaches. Was that the only school that you really looked at outside of UVA?
Yeah, Pitt was the clear option. I thought about, obviously, a couple other schools. I thought about it, but I didn't reach out or anything just because they Penn State's Pennsylvania, so it's not too far, and it's not too far from home. And then there's WVU that's not too far from home. So outside of Pitt, those are really the only two I thought about just because of the how close they are to me. But Pitt was the number one off the bat whenever I started thinking about the transferring process.
So Micky, aside from the fact the homesickness, what have you found to be the biggest differences between the schools, just in general?
Pittsburgh is we love wrestling in Pittsburgh. I feel like it's Western Pennsylvania, so that's really cool to see. Like I said, reiterating what I said about the home matches, it's just everyone actually loves wrestling. So you have a huge community of wrestlers here, which is really cool. And Pittsburgh, outside of the wrestling piece, schooling, it's hard, and I feel like school is going to be hard no matter where you go. So that wasn't a big difference. But the proximity of the campus, I guess, if you go off of campuses, I feel like everything's so close together at Pitt. walking to class it's a lot short. Like it's a short walk, and it's everything is within like a proximity.
I see. So, speaking of goals, speaking of this season, changing gears in this conversation, what do you need to do individually to reach your goals this season?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be. I mean, obviously my goals are high. I want to be a national champion. So, I mean, I gotta be doing the right things on and off in that. That's one thing to make sure I do that. But I mean, I'm just trying to get a little bit better every day, and I'm working on positions in the room, in every position, top, bottom, neutral, different ties. It's just, I mean, all around, I'm just trying to become a well-rounded wrestler. I think that I'm a 3-position wrestler, and I try to take advantage of that. But, I mean, I'm just trying to get a little bit better every day here, and as is our whole team. And, I mean, like I said, my goals are, the sky's the limit.
Good. Now, do you have like checkpoints along the way? Like, do you have the roadmap for the season? Like things that you need to do, in your opinion, to stay on that track and stay on that course?
I mean, I try not to look at any match any differently. So like that's kind of how I approached Vegas. For instance, like I'm going out there and I'm wrestling every match the same. It doesn't matter who steps across that line. Like I'm just I'm trying to score some points and get to my positions, and I mean ultimately win the match, but get better while doing it. So I mean along the way, I'm just trying to take learn from each match I have, and just be more prepared for the end of the year. But I mean, there's not any specific checkpoints along the way. I mean, we have WVU coming up this week, so I mean, I'm looking toward that match right now, and then whoever the next one is on the roster, I'm looking towards that.
So, Micky, speaking of Vegas, how exciting was that for you? And obviously, you guys, last year you competed in some opens, some freestyle stuff, a couple dual meets this year, but that was your first like really big event since high school. I would venture to say I consider it like similar to like the Powerade or the Ironman for college kids. Like, how excited were you? Were there any nerves? Like, I haven't been here for a while, or what was your mindset like going into that?
I mean, I was excited to compete. Last year I actually had the opportunity to go out to Midland, so I had that tournament under my belt. But like you said, like I haven't really had a tournament where like I'm with the whole team, So that was different. But I don't know. I just tried to go into it and like I said, take it one match at a time. I mean, the excitement was there for sure. I was excited to get some high level competition in, but I mean, there were my nerves. I don't know. I try not to let them get to me. It's more excitement than it is like that I'm nervous to like wrestle someone. I'm more like anxious. So I don't know. I mean, it was a cool experience though. It was really cool to get out there and get to, like I said, wrestle with like some of the top competition at my weight.
What was the biggest thing you came away from with that tournament? Obviously, you wrestled, 3 All-Americans back to back to back, went 2-1 versus them. Was there anything that surprised you in a good or a bad way, or anything that you really learned competing out there?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of that tournament, I think the biggest like takeaway, I guess you could say, I had was I'm always confident, but like now I think it's like clear that I can compete with those guys, and I can wrestle anyone and beat anyone if I go out there with the right mindset and get to my stuff. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. But I mean, other than that, I guess
You're when you wrestled Luke Pletcher out there in Vegas, a foe that you're familiar with, I take it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Again, joking aside, how did that? What was it like? First of all, to wrestle someone that you kind of probably grew up with wrestling, and then wrestling at that level, and then I can ask the final question again, but just as you think about off in the distance, like how did that play into your strategy when wrestling him?
Yeah, I mean, Luke and I have wrestled since we were little kids. We've been in the same area for like junior wrestling, and I mean, we were always in the same weight class too. So Luke and we go like way, way back. So I mean, it's kind of cool to be at this level and still be competing after like all of this time. I mean, you see like all the growth, and like we're still wrestling each other, which is crazy. But I don't know, I thought it was really cool, and it's cool I'm sure for everyone else to see, for Luke and I to wrestle, just because, like I said, we've been wrestling ever since we were little kids, and if people like keep up with it, it's probably exciting for them to see. But I mean, going into that match, I tried to approach it just like I did any other time, really. Just try to stay calm and, I mean, wrestle just like I always do. We've practiced together a ton through All American Wrestling Club, so we'd just wrestle together. Like we'd text each other and get workouts in throughout the seasons in high school. So, yeah, I mean, it was cool, and I mean, we're still friends afterwards.
Did you guys talk the week leading up to Vegas about the chance of wrestling each other?
No, we didn't talk then. I mean, in the summer we worked out a little bit, and like we said, like it's like there's always that possibility that we might wrestle each other, which is like crazy after like I said, it's been how many years and we're still competing against each other. But we didn't say like that tournament in particular.
Have you guys always had polar opposite body types?
Yeah, to the max, for sure. We've always been complete opposites, even when we were little kids. In like junior high, every year, we were always complete opposites.
Are you guys exchanging Christmas cards this year?
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Mickey, obviously with the RTC growing at Pitt, do you get a chance to get your hands on either the guys? Where are they from? They're from, are they from Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan? And then obviously Megaludis? And
then there's Nico. Yeah, they're from Kyrgyzstan. Then even the heavier guys have John Gingrich there to wrestle with them. So, I mean, it's awesome. The RTC has been a huge, it's been awesome. It's been an awesome factor for me. I completely get to utilize that. I have Samat to wrestle with, who's from Kyrgyzstan, who's he won some opens some international competitions last year, and he's amazing. So I have him to train with, and Nico, I get to work out with him here and there, which is, like I said, it's very beneficial for me. I mean, it's one of the top guys to come out of. I mean, he's a national champ, so you can't get much better than that.
Do you have a top-level recruit on campus, or maybe one day you're coaching at Pitt? What's your pitch? Like what's the sell to come to Pitt and compete for Coach Gavin and the rest of your staff? We're in the heart of wrestling. I feel like we're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. The recruiting in the area, the high school wrestling, junior wrestling, and then, just the fans, it doesn't get much better than Western Pennsylvania. So, I feel like that's one of our biggest sells. And then on top of that, we're looking to, the sky's the limit for our goals as a team and as a program. So, we're trying to win national titles here. So I feel like I said, our biggest pitch is definitely where we're at, but we're striving for big goals. So, and we're doing the right things too at Pitt. I think as a team, as a whole entity, the whole team is doing the right things, and we're on the right track and out of the classroom and on and off the mat. So, yeah, I guess that'd be my pitch.
Good. One last question: for being like a hometown guy, how important is it, and how seriously do you take it to be part of this resurgent of Pitt wrestling? How important is it to you?
It's super important to me. I take a lot of pride in my hometown, and I also take a lot of pride in Pennsylvania wrestling. I think all of us Pennsylvania wrestlers do. So, it's definitely, I'm fortunate to actually be a part of it. to be honest. I feel very fortunate to be able to be a part of the team and hopefully do things that have never been done before at Pitt. So,
wish nothing but the best as always, coming from fellow Pennsylvanians to another, and looking forward to seeing you just continue to grow. I mean, going into Vegas and having the performance you had, kind of a breakout, you kind of put everyone on notice, and moving forward, we hope that you continue to be a force to be reckoned with. I'll be pulling for you. Truth be told, though, I'm a West Virginia grad, so I keep that on the down low.
Mickey, I went to Bucknell. I was going to say it's really awkward that you're wrestling both of our alma maters next weekend.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so maybe you can go 0-2 this weekend, and we'll cheer for you the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, not me. I don't know. The team's looking pretty tough, so we'll see.
You guys look tough. I be pulling for Bucknell, but I think Pitt might be a little bit much for them.
Again, Mickey, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. All right, Rob, changing gears. Let's talk about the week that's coming up. We got some big matches, high-profile dual meets and matchups within those dual meets. What are your thoughts on what's coming up?
Yeah, this is the time of the year where the duels really pick up. Penn State's wrestling Arizona State, but a lot of conference duels, right? So this is when the Big Ten schedule really starts to get going. I mean, I look at the start of the week every week, and I'll just circle a few matches. I'm like, I need to figure out when I'm going to watch those, either live or go on a BTN to go or Flow and catch individual matchups that I think look good. But to what I said earlier, let's start with Arizona State and Penn State. I think there are a few matches, obviously, that jump out, 174 being one that I think is probably the biggest match of the 2018-19 season up to this point, obviously with Mark Hall and Zahid Valencia. But going weight by weight order, I think a big one is definitely 149. If Brady Burgee goes, he'll face local kid Josh Maruka from Franklin Regional, Pennsylvania, or Franklin Regional High School in Pennsylvania. That's a big match for Burgee. Maruka's ranked 14th. He's kind of the litmus test right now where the really good guys like Micah Jordan beat him. The good guys like Cole Martin, like Austin O'Connor, beat him in close matches. They're kind of toss-ups, but like if you could beat him, you're an All-American contender, and if you can't, you're slightly below that. What do you think of that individual match, Joe? Who do you like there, or what are your expectations?
Well, they don't have any common opponents, so there's going to be no figuring out the transitive property as to who's going to win. So there's that factor, and that's as a result of Burgee just not having a whole lot of time on the mat just yet. Maybe I have maybe it's my Pennsylvania glasses. I think Maruka wins. But like you said, it's going to be a good test for Burgee. But right now, I'm rolling with Maruka. I'm rolling with the PA guy. Just got a hunch. A hunch over the over the Vegas picks was a hit or miss, more misses than hits. But I don't know. Maybe I'll just let my PA bias make the decision for me. I think I like Maruka to win, just with a little bit more experience at the college game right now.
I'm actually going to go opposite of you. I'm going to go with Brady Burgee. I think a couple things. Number one, the travel for Arizona State, and they travel a lot. I actually ran into Maruka and Josh Shields in the airport a couple years ago, and they're like, yeah, we have to fly everywhere. But, flying east could be tough, and just the home field advantage. That's a tough place to wrestle. The crowd's going to be into it. I think Burgee wins a 1 or 2 takedown match, but certainly going to be close. But we'll see. That's why they wrestle the match, and hopefully he's out there. If not, Verclaren is also a formidable opponent as well that, I'm sure would give Maruka some trouble. Glossing over some other weights, 57, you have Pagdaleo from Arizona State. He's kind of an interesting story. He qualified for the NCAAs as a freshman and then couldn't get in the lineup the last 2 years, but he's back in at 157. He'll face, the Terminator, Jason Nolf. I don't think this will be that close, but, Pagdaleo's a top 20 guy. It'll be fun to see what Nolf does with him. 65 is a big one. 2 Whippeal guys, both graduated the same year. I don't know if they ever wrestled, but Vincenzo versus Josh Shields. Shields, he has 1 loss this year. He lost to Evan Wick 5-4. Hasn't really wrestled that many big matches, but this should be an interesting one. I'm not putting Vincenzo on upset alert, But this is certainly a really good match for him to see where he's at. And it's good to see where Shields is at. How do you see this one playing out, Joe?
If you allow me to go back to 57, Pagdaleo's in for a long night against Nolf. It's a good matchup for Nolf as far as tougher competition, but he, like I said, till he shows otherwise, there's not. He's in that Spencer Lee conversation where they're just on a different level. But going back to your original question there at 65, I don't know. I see Joseph winning by 3 or more points, maybe even stretch to 2 takedowns or more. This one, there's no Pennsylvania bias here. Vincenzo's just, as I kind of alluded to earlier, there's that whole, talk because of how exciting a wrestler he is, that there's rumblings that could he possibly challenge for that Hodge Award this year. I think he's going to be too much on their feet as far as good as Shields is. Vincenzo is just good in all positions, and he can score points in bunches like every guy in that Penn State lineup for the most part. And I just think that you factor all those things, you put them together, add them up, it's gonna be probably a 2 takedown or more win for Joseph.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Shields, he's strong, man, and he wrestled Wick tough. He's physically strong. He's a strong wrestler too, as an adjective. But I wonder if he'll be able to hold off Vincenzo at all. But I think he might be able to hold him off. But I don't know if he'll be able to get to his offense as much. Shields, he wins a lot of matches off of pace, aggressiveness, just being tough, hard-nosed. And, Penn State, they're not going to break. Their guys don't roll over like someone else might. 174, like I said, I think this is the biggest match of the year thus far. I mean, what do you have to say? Mark Hall versus Zahid Valencia. We all know the story. The headgear pull in the NCAA semis. Zahid comes out, beats him in the All-Star Classic. National Finals kind of puts it on him. I think the key to this match is whoever scores first, and it's a dumb, actually backing up a little bit. If Hall can score first, he has a really, really good chance to win. But Zahid still has a good chance to come back. I think if Zahid scores first, Hall might be in a little bit of trouble generating his own offense. I'm picking Zahid unless I see otherwise. I just think he's on a different level. He had a really good spring and summer, but you can never count out Mark Hall. Who do you like here, Joe? You going with the Sun Devil, or are you saying Mark Hall wins the big one at home?
I'm going with my head on this one, and I'm going Valencia. For a lot of things that you said, I feel like he may have distanced himself from Mark Hall. And until I see with my own eyes otherwise, I'm rolling with Valencia. We won't talk about the controversial headgear pull, but we'll talk about the national final and the match in the All-Star Classic, and he's really just extended himself. And it's a bad matchup body type wise. Mark Hall looks like a small 174 pounder, if that makes sense. And Valencia looks like a giant out there compared to him. And I think it's the contrast in body styles and that length that Valencia has, and of course his top level talent makes it really hard for Hall to get to his offense. He can't get to the shot from open because his legs are so far away, and he gets in the tie, and he's so much bigger. And I don't want to say physically more imposing, but he keeps Mark Hall at bay just enough that it gets him out of getting comfortable enough to get his offense going from neutral.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But I've heard the guys on Flow say that Hall's a lot bigger than he looks, like weight-wise. He puts on some size. I don't know if he gets fat, if he's eating cheeseburgers or what. I kind of doubt that. I'm sure the kid's really disciplined. But yeah, just looking at body type, Zahid looks huge, right? He looks like he could easily be an 84-pounder. And Hall, he's made 74 kilos in the last 24 months or so. So, yeah, that's a huge match. Like I said, my head says Zahid as well. But that's why they wrestle the matches, like I said earlier. So, Joe, what do the Pitt Panthers have in store this weekend? They're wrestling both of our alma maters. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Rob, they start and they wrestle West Virginia, and this is tough for both of us because I think Pitt's going to come to the table with too much for either team to overcome. They just have more depth, and the West Virginia's in that transition period, much like Pitt was recently with the new coach, and there's looking to build their own team and build depth and Tim Flynn and his staff. So they're trying to get their guys in there, and it doesn't happen overnight. With that said, one guy we'll talk about for a moment. I think he's going to get a win against West Virginia, and we're going to talk to him later on in the broadcast. Micky Phillippi from Pennsylvania is going to get a win over Matt Schmidt at 133 pounds. West Virginia's going to keep it close early on, but when it comes down to it, there's no real marquee matchups that I'm looking forward to. I think one of the better matches of the night will be Jake Wenzel, Pennsylvania product, and Nick Kissis from West Virginia. That has the potential to be a pretty good match because Kissis is an exciting wrestler to watch. He can put some points on the board, and he's a little funky. He's good scrambling and those scramble positions. So that's one you can look to. But up top, Pitt's going to have too much up top with Bonacorsi, Stout, and Demetrius Thomas. They'll close the door on West Virginia if they manage to keep it close up to that point.
I think Stout might struggle with Noah Adams, don't you? Adams is looking pretty strong.
Yes, he has looked strong, but I think ultimately that Stout's going to win. And again, I'm taking a hard swallow there before I make these statements. It's tough. So I hope Coach Flynn and company don't get too mad at me.
I think at 157 with Bucknell, arguably Bucknell's best wrestler, Zach Hartman, him and Romani could be interesting. He's looked really good this year, avenged a couple losses versus Kennedy Monday out in Vegas, and was pretty close to making the finals. But he has had lapses in the past, like bad stretches. Hartman's a young guy. I would put my money on Romani, but that could be a statement match for Hartman, coming back to his hometown, getting a big nationally ranked win. Though I do think the Bison are going to have their hands full versus Pitt. If
I'm looking at that match on paper, that's one I'm circling as well at 57. We talked about it. I was super impressed with Hartman just going out and more or less being fearless when he wrestled Jason Nolf over the weekend or last week. I'm sorry. He was, I guess I could use the term relentless, until Nolf. I don't want to say got it together, but more or less, got his offense going and put it on him. But that's definitely a match for him. Like you said, that could be, the one that puts him over the hump. It's a guy that he definitely can run with, and we'll see if he can run the full 7 minutes with him. He ran with Nolf for a little bit and kept it interesting and was aggressive and didn't show him a whole lot of respect going after him the way he did. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does the same against Romani and works in his favor.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that one. Some other interesting matches over next weekend coming up. NC State versus Nebraska, two that I like. Zeke Moisey, if Sean Foz gets down to weight, you never know with Foz. 125 is such a struggle for him. They really limit his weigh-ins. But if he's down, that's a big one. But the one I'm really looking forward to is 157. You have Hayden Hidley taking on Tyler Berger. Hidley, of course, took a loss to Larry Early last week, 4-2. Berger took a loss out at Vegas to Griffin Perriott. But what really interests me about this match is that this was kind of Hidley's breakthrough win last year. They wrestled in a dual meet. I believe he was losing going into the third, ended up winning 6-3, and then defeated him again 3-2 in the NCAA quarterfinals. It looks like he has his number a little bit, but Berger's tough. He's really dangerous. He looks really good this year. Do you think Hidley gets back on track in this one, or do you think Berger is going to seek revenge?
I'm going to go Hidley on this one. Not so much because my PA bias. It's more maybe my anti-Nebraska stance. I always just feel that they're close, but don't always get over the hump. And I think I've been pretty upfront with that in these podcasts about how Nebraska wrestles at times, and maybe I'm wrong. And please, if I am, and someone wants to debate it with me, I'm more than happy to hear another side of it. I mean, even you, Rob, if you think I'm off base, I just think everyone's allowed a hiccup here and there, and that's with that early match with Hidley. And I think for sure he's back on track with this Berger match. He'll be up. He'll be ready to go. I don't know. Maybe he's looking past that match with Early, and that's what happened. But I think he'll be up and definitely looking to get back to his winning ways.
I think so as well. And one more match I want to mention in that duel 184, you have Venz, who's probably been the most consistent guy for Nebraska this year. He has one loss. He didn't look great versus Bonacorsi till he stuck him, but he's been pretty solid. Him and Nick Renan will be a big match. Both those guys they have big throws. They're a little bit funky, a little bit goofy. So that'll be an interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised to see a fall in that match. But yeah, to your point about Nebraska, definitely, man. They're inconsistent. They have a lot of highs. It's a weird team. Like they'll have big time recruits come in and kind of flame out. Then you get the Jordan Burroughs, the James Green of the world that maybe aren't huge recruits that end up being superstars. Even guys like Robert Kokesh, who I don't think was a huge recruit, was a 3 or 4 time All-American for them. So they produce those guys, but they just, like Taylor Venz, guy, not a big recruit, doing really well. And then they'll have a huge recruit like Bo Bresky kind of flame out and transfer. So yeah, they're definitely kind of an enigma to a degree. Not the biggest dual meet of the year, but I think might have the most interesting matchups is Iowa and Ohio State. This is a big one. I think everyone kind of coming into the year thought Iowa might be the second best team. Ohio State might thump them. If you look over the dual meet weight by weight, I mean, I think they're favored probably they're definitely favored at 25, excuse me. They're favored at heavyweight, 65. And then I think I'd say Ohio State's favored, at least a minor favorite, in just about every weight. Joe, have you thought about this dual meet much and what interesting matchups are coming up and what your thoughts are on them?
So I got looking at this and really started to dissect it today. And like you said, like if we were to go down the list, obviously 25, Iowa's got it. Gonna get 6 there. I'm really excited for this Santo Pletcher match. You have DeSanto, who's like the Energizer Bunny, doesn't stop, and then Pletcher will, does a really nice job of slowing guys down and forcing them to wrestle his style, and not afraid to grind out a match. So I think he'll be able to slow DeSanto down and keep his offense at bay. I think he's going to not allow him to get to that dump. And so that's going to, we'll see what DeSanto's secondary attack will be from his feet to score from. And so I'm giving a nod to Pletcher at 33. At 41, McKenna Murrin. Again, I'd like to say the PA guy is going to win, but again, until you show me otherwise, I think McKenna's going to be a little bit too much for him. Maybe in the fact of by 2 takedowns or more. Moving on to 49, Micah Jordan. I was really impressed with what I saw to him at Vegas at times, and I think he puts it on Lugo. I'm going to say he might major Lugo. Maybe that's brash in me saying that, but I really think Micah Jordan's down 49. He's big, he's strong, and I think he's going to put it on Lugo. You go 50. What do you think on those 3 weight classes there? I'll give you an opportunity to chime in before I run the gauntlet.
Yeah, 33. Again, with DeSanto, I don't see him like breaking Pletcher or overwhelming him. Pletcher's working out with really good guys on a daily basis. That's a really tough room. I'd be surprised if DeSanto beat him. I'll just leave it at that. I think it's probably a 1 to 4 point win for Pletcher. It's going to be close, but I'll pick Pletcher. 141, McKenna looks like he's on a mission. He's wrestling better than ever. Murin took a weird loss last week. I'm really high on Murin, but I think this is a different level. I think when you look at the tiers of 141, like I said, you kind of have those big 3. Maybe throw Nick Lee in as like a soft 4. But after that, 5 through 15 are pretty interchangeable. I think Mirren's in that 5 through 15 range. I think McKenna's going to beat him, and I think it's going to be pretty handily. 49, same thing. I mean, like we said, Ohio State's really tough. They're not as good as last year, and they're not really chasing Penn State, or they're not really pushing Penn State. So I don't think they're getting the recognition they deserve. But this is a dang good team. I'm with you, man. I think Micah minimum 3 takedowns versus Lugo. Lugo hasn't looked great. He's a good athlete. He's a tough kid, but technically doesn't have that go-to shot. He's not that fluid. So I think he's limited. I think people expected him to make huge jumps when he went to Iowa, but it doesn't look like he's really made crazy gains. And I'm not blaming the Iowa staff for that. I think Lugo just is who he is. 57 is an interesting one. You have Caleb Young. He's actually ranked 7th versus Keyshawn Hayes. I think if you're a bookie, you probably favor Hayes in this match, even though he's ranked lower, just based off of prior results. But obviously Young's ranked higher. This is when I'll actually go with Young. I think it's interesting because he wrestled 74 last year for part of the year, and Hayes did a wrestle off at 41. So think about the jump and how awkward it is that these guys are wrestling. I think he'll be a little bit too big, a little bit too tough on the mat, and he'll grind this one out. Any insight into this match, Joe, or any strong opinions on who you think wins?
I'm going to go Young in this match as well, not to be the copycat. But Hayes been a little up and down this year, and you kind of hit the nail on the head with possibly the weight. He's not maybe a full 57-pounder yet, and with Jordan coming down, it kind of left him homeless in a sense, and he had to go up. So I don't think he's settled into that weight yet and used to wrestling the bigger guys. And Young again spent parts of last season 2 weight classes above. So for me, it's almost no brainer. 65. I'm going to say Iowa can get 6 there, and if they're going to be in this match when the dust settles, they need Marinelli to get 6. So I think Marinelli could definitely get the fall there against Romero at 65.
I wonder if they've ever wrestled, both being from Ohio. Romero was kind of like, he was like the single A phenom or Division III, the small division, whatever it is, but didn't do a whole lot of national stuff. I'm curious if they ever wrestled or if they have a relationship at all.
74, Ethan Smith and Miles Wilson. Who you got?
I'm going Smith. Smith just pulled off a big upset today. He beat Christensen from Wisconsin, who we had mentioned before. Took Labriola's O from him, gave him his first loss. Smith, he's had some weird results. I think he got majored by Jacob Oliver. We mentioned that on last show. But he's got a ton of talent. It looks like he's got this job on lock, at least for the time being. Took it from Campbell. That win today certainly doesn't hurt. I think he'll put it on Wilson, although Wilson did get hurt in that Iowa State match. So I wonder did Wilson wrestle yesterday for them versus Lehigh?
I was watching. I just wanted to see the results of that Resnick-Lee match for the 2 minutes and 30 seconds it lasted.
Yeah, that was a tough one for him. Jeremiah Moody. He's a backup 57-pounder for Iowa. He bumped up. Cutler beat him up pretty bad, but I wonder if it'll be Moody, who they're going to throw out there to 74. But I think regardless, Smith's probably the favorite. Looking at 84, you got Cash Wilkie versus Miles Martin. I got to think Martin picks up a major decision or worse here. Do you see any way this is competitive, Joe?
No, I don't. Miles Martin's looked good so far up to this point of the season. Nothing changes here for me or for him. He's going to continue to forge ahead and just put points on the scoreboard. And Cash Wilkie's in for a long night. Like you said, I think at worst it's a major decision in favor of the Buckeyes. Moving to 97, you got Jacob Warner and Colin Moore. I don't know. Colin Moore is like the regular season Hodge winner, almost in a sense. I'm exaggerating there, but he just wins matches. He wins a lot of matches, and however, it's when March comes that seems to be his kryptonite. Up to this point in his young career, he's still in his third year. as we look at this. Jacob Warner's no slouch of an opponent, but I still am gonna go more on this one, but I would say 3 points or less win for Colin Moore. I think he's gonna struggle for a little bit, opening them up.
My prediction is that at this point in the dual meet, it's out of hand, and Iowa doesn't wrestle Warner. That seems to be the trend with him. I think he's a little dinged up. I don't know what it is. He's pretty rah-rah on the sidelines. I don't know if he's doing that to basically ask the brands to put him in, but I don't think he sees the mat here unless it's competitive or, they're within a match or two. Then in heavyweight, you got Stoll and Singletary, assuming Stoll goes. Got to think Stoll's a pretty heavy favorite here. Stoll doesn't put up a ton of points against tougher guys, but I think he wins this one pretty easily.
Agreed. If Stoll does go, he wins handily. He might only win 3-0, but it'll be a very convincing 3-0 win where Singletary doesn't sniff a point. Right now, fans, we're got a special treat for you. We got Millersville head wrestling coach Kerry Regner. Coach, welcome to the show. Thanks for the time as always. We're grateful for every guest making a little bit of time to come on and talk to us. So,
yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you guys.
Kerry, first question. We had talked about, obviously I know you coached my brother. We wrestled in the same club growing up, but your path from high school to college wrestling is definitely not traditional. Can you kind of talk to us about, what you did when you graduated high school and how you landed at Millersville?
Yeah, it's quite a journey. All across the country, all over the world. Well, you touched up on wrestling in the same club, and I think it has to start there, other than just the start of wrestling. But we wrestled for Angry Fish, and Ray, Brinzer, and Ty Moore, huge advocates of freestyle and Greco. I'd never done that either. This was sophomore year of high school, and it not quickly for me, but quickly became apparent to Ray and Ty that I kind of had a little natural knack for Greco. And then, as we went on, it kind of, it showed its face for me as well. But by my senior year, like Ray and Ty, they told you where to go to school. They didn't ask for your opinion. So, Ray and Ty were like, you're going to Northern Michigan and you're going to wrestle for Ivan Ivanov, and that's it. And I went up there for a couple camps my junior and then senior year, but by my senior year, I had bought in, I drank the Kool-Aid, and I was headed to Northern Michigan. And so, right from, as soon as I stepped off the high school mat, I never really stepped on another collegiate mat as far as, competing wise. So I wrestled at Northern Michigan and graduated from there, and wrestled till I was almost 27, I believe. And so I was in Northern Michigan for a long time and spent a stint in Boise, Idaho, as well as Colorado Springs, and then headed back east to home, Pennsylvania, and coached a high school for a year, and then got in contact with Clarion, and was there. I was at Clarion for 2 seasons, and then got an opportunity at Williams Baptist College and started the program there. Had a fair amount of success, which again opened some doors. And my wife and I are super happy and super blessed to be in Millersville and part of the Millersville family, and working hard to get the program to where we see fit. So, yeah.
So you mentioned being at Williams Baptist, having some success, and for the listeners out there, what was it, your third or fourth year that Williams Baptist ended up 4th place at the Nationals? And this is a school in Arkansas, so not a whole lot of tradition.
It was our 3rd year. So I was down there for almost 4 years, for 3 years and about, I think, 8 months or so. My first 8 months were recruiting. I was recruiting. And then, so I moved down there in January, the beginning of the year, and recruited all the way to August. Had built a team, built a program, and then in our third season we finished fourth at the NAI National Championships. Our first year we finished 22nd, and our second year we finished 15th. So a steady climb. And then last year I was very proud of their results. Williams finished third. I wasn't part of that team, but very proud of them. So yeah.
So what do you do differently that got the program, I guess, competitive or more than competitive that fast? And obviously you put an All-American on the stand for Millersville last year.
Oh man. Well, I love to work. So I love my job. And I love to work, and it's my job, but it's my hobby and it's my passion. And I think, like, when you, when you're around me, you see my passion. You're either going to like it or hate it, but I think it's you bring a lot of passion to the table, and people get behind you quick, and it you get fired up. So like. Yeah, I'm in here in my office right now and plugging away, and it's late in the evening, but I love doing what I'm doing, and I don't know. That's a secret, I guess, is we just work hard.
We talked about your non-traditional route to get to where you're at right now, and what was it about the Millersville job that kind of, I don't know, got your attention? Was it just a chance to come home, or was it something more than that?
Well, that's a good portion of it. So my wife and I are both from the great state of Pennsylvania. And though we enjoyed our time in Arkansas, enjoyed all the people who we got to meet and become a part of our lives, especially the wrestlers and the coaches we worked with. But we have two young boys. So I have two boys, Jack and Liam. They're about 20 months apart, and you hit that phase of life, and there's a strong pull to get them close to family. But no, Millersville is a great place to be. I'm from the Pittsburgh area, and so there's a lot of Pittsburgh pride, Whitfield pride, or whatever you want to call it. But you get over here and you're like, wow, this is a beautiful part of the state. And, it's a very attractive, place to be. The school is thriving. The school sells itself. So once you got on campus and get to see the campus and get to see the school, and all the opportunities that are surrounded, it sells itself. And, I just need a wrestling room and I'm good to go. So
when you got on campus and you took the job in Millersville, what was one thing that right away you felt needed to be changed? You're looking at what you did at your last stop and things that you learned along the way. What had to be changed in order for this team to be successful?
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of talent on the team. I think depth is a very underrated aspect of not just wrestling, but sports, competition, everything in general. Like, Pennsylvania is the greatest state in the country. A lot of it is just due to numbers. You look at how many college teams we have, how many college programs we have, and every other high school, has a coach who wrestled, at this college or that college or was this in college. And it's really easy to see why our success as a state is our success. There's a lot of depth and tradition. But yeah, at Williams, they added wrestling to boost enrollment. There's no secret behind that. And a lot of small private schools or smaller schools or schools interested in increasing enrollment are doing that in general, and it's great. It's great for the sport, and NWCA and Mike Moyer are doing a great job of making sure they find those schools who could invest in wrestling and do and will. And I was one of them at Williams. But so we had a big roster, and it was hard, like, to get through the room. Like, I remember it was probably our last year, and we had a guy who was blood round, at nationals. So, certainly he can scrap. He was qualifier the year before, and he was blood round that year. And I remember, a one Friday, a singlet Friday, and he went 0-2. We wrestled, singlet Friday, you come in and you warm up and you get ready and you wrestle 2 competition matches, and we keep score and different things like that. And he went 0-2, but he went 2-2 or 3-2 at nationals. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I know he's blood round. So he's blood round at nationals, but he can't win a match in competition in the room. Not saying that, he had a bad day. It was just the depth was, it was intense. And, there's kids that, were, not hiding, but, they couldn't, for whatever reason, they weren't starting yet. And if you didn't come with your A game, they're going to beat you. And so that was a really encouraging part. And that's something that was probably our biggest need here. When I got here last year, we had, we had 17 rostered guys, and, you think 10 weights, well, you can do that. But I mean, it's really hard to, navigate, 10 guys at different weights when you only have 17. And by December, we only had 14. I think for most of the year, we only had about 14, active or healthy guys on the team. So, but they really did a nice job of toughing out some nagging injuries or pain and aches. And a lot of it was like, well, we don't have anyone else. You got to go. But, we hope that we are building depth here, and we hope that we can continue to build depth where, you're the starter, and if you don't come every day ready to go, that guy might behind you might gain an edge, and next thing you know, he's looking ahead of you, and you're in his rearview mirror. So
my next question is going to be about the success you had last season, and you kind of touched on a little bit with only having 17 guys, down to 14, and still have that team success and on an individual level as well. It's a testament to, like you said, the talent that you did have. But could you have imagined, like, even during the season last year, that you're gonna get that many dual meet victories and have an All-American? Like, was that all things that were on your radar, even like as it was happening, or and even before the season started?
I don't know if I remember or if I had the schedule was kind of set for me because my wife had our second child, Liam. Like, it was kind of the same point when we were accepting the position. So I started in July, and everything was basically set in stone. And I don't ever remember sitting down and trying to calculate where we were going to win and where we were going to, where we weren't favored or whatever you want to say. I'm not sure if I don't know if I kept track of that, but I remember the first time I wrestled with Shane Runke, who ended up being an All-American. And I said, man, this guy can go. Like, he could be an All-American. And that was my first thought, after I wrestled with him. And now he's made considerable more leaps and bounds. So, he's got a lot of hard work to do. And actually, right now is, he took a loss last weekend, but, man, he works hard and he is determined and he is tough. So I think the first time like I said, first time I wrestled with him, I thought he could get on the podium, and we have a lot of guys with talent that just needed a little bit of guidance.
Kerry, you mentioned depth. What are you doing to get that depth? Give us your recruiting pitch. How are you getting all these studs to, want to come to the Ville?
Well, if I can get them on campus, I have a pretty good shot because, like I said, the school sells itself. Like, we're Millersville University is in Millersville, Pennsylvania, which touches the borders of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're in Lancaster County. And always one of the things that, I'll say to the parents, the kids usually don't know, or the recruits usually don't know. I say, when you think of, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, what do you think of? And the parents almost unanimously always say the Amish. And that is, one of our traits and one of our features. And, as a member or a citizen of Lancaster County, we're proud of that. But at the same time, there's like 550,000 people that live in Lancaster County. And there's a lot going on. And there's a lot that Lancaster County has to offer. And one has the city of Lancaster. And then at the same time, if you want to lose cell phone reception and get out and go hunting or fishing or get out into the country, you can do that, equally as fast as getting into the city. And our location's great, and the school is great. Our numbers are rock solid, and like I said, the campus is beautiful. It's got an older, nostalgic feel in a lot of aspects with a certain part of campus with certain buildings like the president's office and the old theater and the pond. But it's also got up-to-date, newer constructions like our new Welcome Center and our new dorms. Our oldest dorm on campus is, I think, less than 5 years old. Our facilities as far as athletics are right up there that can compete against anyone in our conference. So it sells itself. And so really all I have to do is sell the program. And Millersville, as far as, is part of the PSAC, and people, forget or don't know what a coveted or what a awesome conference the PSAC is with its history. And Millersville is part of that. And we are super proud to be a part of the PSAC, and it's a tough conference. Not just for the fact that it boasts 12 teams, 4 in Division I and 8 in Division II, but you look at the Division II rankings, and not that I like rankings or care about rankings, but 6 out of the 8 teams are in the top 25, and then one is receiving votes, and the other, the 8th, is just as good as most of the others. So, you can't, just like the depth that I kind of talked about in the room, there is no room for error at the PSAC, in the PSAC conference, regardless school or whatever tradition. All of the schools can field a really strong team and come at you, and you put your head down and you're not ready for something. You're gonna figure out what good wrestling looks like real quick.
Hey, you speak of Lancaster. I think Lancaster in that area is famous for, Coach, is Shady Maple.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't been there yet, so maybe don't put that on the podcast. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I haven't been there yet.
Hey, go on your birthday. It's free.
Kerry doesn't leave the wrestling room or his office.
That's right. Yeah, wrestling room, office, and then home. So that's
Coach,
it.
I have to say you're a great follow on social media, and you do a phenomenal job of promoting your program. So everyone out there, listen, give them a like and a follow. There's always something going on through their social media, and just a total ambassador to the sport, and it's obviously paying dividends for his program. Given one that these avenues or tools, if you want to call it, to drum up interest and hype around the program. So like I said, it's from a standpoint of a fan, where Millersville was not on the radar at all. You've brought it to life and given it legs, and it's it's definitely walking and moving around, and it's only gonna. I feel like you're on the upswing with what you have going on there out in Lancaster.
Not to give away Coach Regner's secret, but Oh, sorry, Kerry, but kids like seeing social media, and they do a really good job of it. And I think it's important for programs to do it, but some don't like to follow suit, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Me personally, I do a lot of copying off people. So if I see something that you do, or if I see something that I like that you do, like, I'm going to copy, and to some extent, I mean, I'll make it my own, but like, I follow, purposefully, I follow some of these bigger programs who, probably have a, full-time person running all their social media, and making sure they get every fine detail. So I follow some programs who have some solid social media, but, I look at like, obviously the nostalgia of what Penn State is doing is really cool and really attractive. But, you see what like Chris Bono and John Reeder are doing at Wisconsin, and obviously South Dakota State as well, but now Wisconsin, and like, how can you not be a fan of that? And it's easy to become a fan because you get to kind of see what they're doing. And then you see what kind of passion that Bono brings to the table with his short videos and, jump around and whatever. And then, you see that motivational tweet every morning from John Reeder, and you like it or retweet it, and you're like, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go, go after the day. So.
All good stuff, Coach. Again, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Got to talk and a little insight as to what you have going on there at Millersville. And, best of luck this weekend and beyond. And again, from Rob and I know we're going to be following you and keeping tabs on you as the season progresses.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys for having me on. Thanks for following us, and keep up the good work. I love what you guys do. Love what the PA Power Wrestling does. That's one of my tabs that's constantly open on my browser. So keep up the good work. I love it. We need 1 million more people like you.
Hey, Jeff will be glad you stroked his ego like that. Rob and I,
right.
we go to great lengths to take shots at Jeff every chance we get. So
It's not hard.
No, it's not. Easy target. So
okay.
All right, that'll wrap it up for another week here in the open room with Rob and Joe. Thanks for tuning in. As always, visit PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. Follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle. Give us a thumbs up on Facebook, and check us out on Instagram. Don't forget, fans, you can subscribe to the PA Power Podcast on iTunes and listen to all 3 shows on Spotify. If you want to send any questions or suggestions for the show, email us at collegetalk@PAPowerWrestling.com.